I'm very happy now to introduce Jack Herer to you. Jack this morning, sorry, I know you're anxious to hear him immediately, but Jack was at a press conference at Parliament House this morning along with Michael Moore. The reason we had that press conference this morning was to draw attention to the fact that the US Drug Policy Foundation, which is a highly prestigious group of people seeking to effect change in the United States, actually gave Jack Herer the award last year, which is called the Robert C. Randall Award for the achievement in the field of citizen action. And they also gave an award to an Australian, Michael Moore. They gave him the Justice Ledane Award for law reform for the work he's done in achieving the changes to the law in the ACT. So, in fact, we must acknowledge the work that you people are doing as well in trying to achieve change. Jack's work has been outstanding, and his book, which we all value so highly, which reveals the history of cannabis, is now into its 10th edition. Jack is going to be very informative to you. Jack, we're pleased to have you with us.
Like most people, I had no idea that there was anything else you could do with pot except get stoned in the early 70s. I had started smoking when I was 30 years old in 1969. My wife and I, in 1967, she had started smoking pot, and I said, how can you do this in front of our children? How can you smoke marijuana? She says, Jack, lighten up, smoke some with me, you'll feel a lot better, you relax a lot more. And I said, we got divorced. There was a number of reasons. I was this pretty uptight prude. I smoked cigarettes, I did alcohol, you know, I didn't need marijuana. And so we got divorced in 1969. A pretty young lady that I met and started dating said to me, Jack, did you ever smoke any marijuana? I said, no. I said, no, absolutely not. She said, well, you need to. You're very uptight, you know, you just don't get relaxed. And I said, I drink and I smoke tobacco. He says, it's not the same. And finally, she convinced me to smoke in 1969 some pot with her. And I took one hit, blew it out, and said, it doesn't work on me. And she did it about 2 or 3 more times, and I just, and didn't even inhale. I did it like Clinton is supposed to have done it. And then, about the 3rd or 4th time, she went out and she bought some Acapulco Gold. In the summer of '69, it was very scarce to get hold of good pot, apparently. I didn't know anything, I was a total novice. And she brought this Acapulco Gold back and she said, would you really like to get stoned? I said, yeah, I'm not afraid of it anymore now because I've tried it 3 times and I know it doesn't affect me. So she rolled up about 3 joints of this pot that about 2 hits would get me stoned out of my mind. And she rolled up 3 joints of it, and now I'm not afraid of it, and I want to show off to her. And I started smoking, and she said, hold it. I held it. Can I let it out? And I got stonier and stonier, and she kept passing the joint back, and I couldn't believe her hand was coming across the table again. And I was going, wow, I never even had, my head was going. And she put earphones on me. She put, you know, in '69 it was fairly unusual. They put earphones on me to hear music, and I listened to music, and I could see each instrument playing. I could see each note coming out, and it was, I think it was the Tijuana Brass, and I heard all these notes and all this incredible music. And I had never liked music that as much as I did that day. I'd never seen it in full living color coming out. I said, this is great. And we smoked another joint, and I'm feeling great. And we were already lovers, and we went into the bedroom, and we made this most incredible experience I had ever had in my life. Now, I'd had 3 children by this time. And I never even knew that human beings could feel or do or have experiences like we had in the next, whatever, couple hours that we had. And I, maybe, and then after it was over, we were laughing, and I said, oh, this is great. I never felt like this before. She went into the kitchen and with me, and we went to the refrigerator, and I got the first hint of what the munchies were like. And I said to her, why is this illegal? And she said, I don't know. And before you knew it, I was smoking pot once a week, twice a week, 3, 4 times a week. And then I was selling a little bit, quarter ounces, half ounces. Now in those days, an ounce of pot in the United States cost between $5 and $10. And the best pots, the Acapulco Gold, were really expensive. They were $15 to $20 an ounce. And the Colombians started coming in, and the Michoacan and Oaxacans, and these are exotic marijuanas for America in those days, and at $10, $15, $20 an ounce. And I thought, well, this is a lot of fun. I began dealing because I wanted to lay off some of the cost it was costing me for the marijuana. And pretty soon I'm dealing pounds and 5 pounds and 100 pounds, and everything is, wow, it's getting to be a big business. I was a sign painter. And one night, a fellow sold me some pot. And I'm telling you this story so you can understand how I got involved in this thing. One night, this fellow sold me some pot, and he told me it was a 9 weed, and I told him it was a 6 weed after I smoked it. We were playing chess, and he was trying to sell me some pot, and we made up a schedule of how to rate pot on the 1 to 10 scale. And we didn't have any idea of hemp. We didn't even, none. We just figured out what 1 and 2 weed was, what 3 and 4 weed was, what 5 weed was, 6 and 7, 8, 8 and a quarter, 8 and a half, 9 and an eighth, 9 and a quarter. Because when you got to the better weeds, the numbers got huger. And from 9 to 9 and a half was maybe 7 steps. And we wrote this book with the little funny sayings, and our friends came over and wrote in. This thing actually wasn't a book, it was a great big wall chart. Started out in the back of a paper bag, then moved to a 24 by 36 wallboard. And when we were all done, somebody said, why don't you make that into a book? We did, and it became a bestseller in America in 1973 and 74, and it was sold in all the bookstores and all the head shops. And now I'm a famous guy because I wrote this book over an argument about how much I should get for an ounce of pot, or so we had the prices and how much you pay for lids, pounds, and kilos of all these different grades of weed, how to judge it, and how many hits to a mild stone, very stone, and stone. And we thought we knew all about pot. In 1973, in February 1973, I met a guy named Captain Ed Adair. He owned a head shop in Van Nuys, California, which is part of the city of Los Angeles. And he said, come on with me to, I mean, you're famous, Jack, you wrote this book. Come on with me to a marijuana meeting we're gonna have for the legalization of cannabis up in San Luis Obispo, or maybe it was Santa Barbara, I can't really remember where the first one was held. And I went up there and I met people that knew about hemp. A guy named Dr. Michael Aldridge, who knew that marijuana was also a plant called hemp, and it had been used for paper and sails and ropes and flags and books and Bibles and maps. And he told me all this, and I kept thinking, grass, I mean, probably you could get it from lawn trimmings, you know, or, yeah, I never realized that it was a very significant plant, even when he was telling me this. And then he kept telling me, and other people kept working on me, and then suddenly, I was a writer by this time, because I had written a book. I started writing all this stuff down and researching it and looking it up and writing for different publications in America. And my partner, this guy, Captain Ed, who had got me involved, he would study and research it with me, and we'd talk. And one day in 1974, after about 18 months of writing about this, we were loaded out of our mind one night on many different things. And all of a sudden we had a realization that we had never had before, and nobody had had for 400 years on Earth before that we knew of, that marijuana was going to save the world. It was going to make, we were so stoned. He said, you know, you can make all the paper. We don't ever have to cut down another tree. I said, I mean, nobody had ever said this out loud before. And we said, we make all the paper and all the fibers. We can make all the clothing and all the fuels. We can run the cars. We can make food and all the stuff that we had learned. And we extended this. We extrapolated it to its nth degree. And everything came back that marijuana was the most important thing on our planet. And of course, we thought we'd come down from being stoned and realize how ridiculous we were, like 95% of your ideas are when you come down. Except when we came down, it was even truer than when we went up. And of course, we told our families and children, and they told us, Dad, you're nuts, don't say this. You're gonna be an embarrassment to us, don't say that. Don't tell them about marijuana gonna save the world. And I said, this is the way the facts come out. And they said, please don't do it in front of our friends. And these were 14, 15-year-old boys at the time. So, of course, we kept telling it and doing it, and nobody would believe us. NORML, the National Organization to Reform Marijuana Laws in America, both the state and the federal NORML, and High Times magazine denounced us as we were crazy. They could not believe that we had said these things and that we were talking these things, and we were actually, and we were only like 2 people that believed it, and then 3, and then 5. And most of our friends wouldn't talk to us about this. They felt like we were addled, we were insane. And we kept saying and telling them this, and by 77 we had a small following. I went to the Playboy Mansion. I had many businesses and could afford, we went to the Playboy Mansion for a $100 get-in 1977 for the legalization of cannabis. And we started to talk to some of the politicians that were there, and they all thought we were nuts. They would get away, and everybody, including the publisher of Playboy, Hugh Hefner, wouldn't hear any of this information. 77, 78, NORML kept a taboo on us. High Times kept a taboo on, and we had all this information. We by now knew that we had this information, and nobody, very few people would believe us. Our families stopped telling us we were crazy because we still gave them allowances. And then about 1980, 81, we had become big enough and famous that we opened up a stand on Venice Beach, which is the busiest beach in North America. It might be the busiest beach in the world. About 10 to 12 million people walk by our stand every year. That's about 2/3 the population of Australia. And we opened up a little 6-foot booth. It became a 10-foot booth and 12, and we started teaching this. And the LA Times, the Los Angeles Times came down there, and a reporter, who is now the editor of the LA Times, came down there, and he was going to make an article to show how silly and ridiculous these guys were, believing that marijuana was going to save the world and make the paper fiber fuel of the world. And he came down there to disprove and write an article about these crazy guys on Venice Beach. And we took him through all the information, all the documentation, all the history. And by the time we were through, he not only believed us, he became us. And he said, why don't you write this all down and put it in a book form, or at least a short paper so people would understand it. And we did. And he wrote the article for the LA Times. It was a 3-page article, and we suddenly had tens of thousands of people that believed in cannabis and hemp as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, ecological thing on earth. And when they said the greatest, it was very hard for them to contemplate. Is hemp really the best paper on earth? Hemp is by far the best paper on earth. It is the cheapest to make if you can grow it without any government restrictions, forcing you to grow low THC or smaller plants like they are doing in France right now. It is the greatest plant on earth for making cloth. As you can see, everything I have up here is from hemp. My jacket is from hemp. My shirt is from hemp. These are all different textures. Even my sneakers are made from hemp. The hats Everything here is made from hemp, the briefcases. And this is particle board that was brought to me today by one of the men here. Where is the man? I can't see in the back. Oh, in the back. Would you get up and introduce yourself? He's from, what's the name of the town? Where? I'm sorry, I can't hear all this. Can you hear me okay? No? Can you hear me better? Okay. Sorry, I wish you'd have yelled out earlier. This is particle board all made out of hemp. No bugs ever attack it. No termites. This is particle board from hemp. This is particle board from 80% hemp and 20% wood pulp, as he told me. And they can make beams and long beams and build your house. They can make a thing called isochandra. And the isochandra, you can build, it's cement and hemp herds, which are these wood pieces cut up. And this will make and build your houses without cutting down another tree, last 3, 4, 5, 6 times longer. They found this in the south of France on bridges that are 1,500 years old that were made with hemp and cement instead of stones and cement. It's 1/6 the weight of cement made with stones, and it's much stronger and much longer lasting. It's insane to not use this, for our engineers to be precluded from using this. You will be able to build houses without cutting down a tree that will last forever compared to tree houses. No termites will ever attack it. And everything I just told you is illegal to do in the United States, probably illegal to do here in Australia. And there's only one force in this world that will turn that around, and that's you. Because you have this information, knowledge, and check it out and know it, you can go and teach other people. Each one of you, best paper material, best fiber material. Of all things on earth, nothing even compares. This not only lasts 26 times longer than cotton, and is softer than cotton and warmer than cotton. It's the healthiest thing you can grow. Of the 3 million plants that grow on our planet, of all the plants that grow on our planet, it is the only plant that makes the earth richer for having grown there. The only annual that makes the earth better. The only annual that kills the bugs, or gets rid of the bugs. They don't regenerate. It kills the pests, the insects. Hemp is the greatest plant, not just from my words, but there is no negative side to it except the cops will shoot you. And they shoot you because they have dis and misinformation put in there by the United States government. The United States government is responsible for much of this mis and disinformation about this plant. And the companies that funded the government in the 1930s to outlaw hemp were DuPont, were the W. Grace Company, were the Hearst Corporation, all companies that had to lose billions of dollars even back then if this plant was known to have these qualities. They outlawed the plant and they got away with it. World War II, they had to re-legalize it. Have you all seen Hemp for Victory? Well, you see, they had to re-legalize it 5 years after it was outlawed. They had outlawed the #1 plant. And isn't it strange that the government of the United States would outlaw the #1 plant just when machinery was invented that brought hemp production from 200 to 300 man-hours per acre. That's about maybe 700 to 800 man-hours per hectare down to 1 hour. You know what the difference between 700 man-hours is and 1 man-hour? From a $700 hamburger to a $1 hamburger, and the $1 hamburger was healthier and better for the environment and the soil and the people making it. And that's what we're stuck with. We can't legally, in this country, here in Australia, or in America, or in almost any Western country, grow a plant that is the healthiest, the strongest, the biggest, the best of all the plants on earth for paper, of all the plants on earth for fiber, of all the plants on earth annually for fuel. It'll produce more fuel annually and sustainably than all the other annuals on earth. It will be sustainable, not like sugarcane, not like enough, not like they would like to use some trees for. Hemp is the one plant you can grow, and you grow it around your other plants. You don't grow it on the good soil. You let the weak plants grow in the good soil. You plant hemp on the weak soil or bad soil and make it into good soil, or protect the plants that are growing on the good soil by planting hemp all around, and the bugs don't go in. Now, don't you think that it's really neat of the powers that be, of God's, that we have a plant that does this for the human race without poisoning it? And wouldn't you know this is the one plant that's outlawed? Well, when we found this out, we thought we'd go out and teach the world. And then in '81, when the Los Angeles Times published that story and we began to grow, and this information began to grow, we thought everybody will know this. We thought everybody would know it in '75. By '76, it'll be legal. By '77, '78. But people wouldn't stay with it. The government did a terrible thing in the United States. It decriminalized, it decriminalized less than an ounce of marijuana in 11 states. And usually most of them were big states. What that means is that you could smoke pot, and if you got caught, your maximum fine you had to pay was $25 to $100 and say goodbye. Before that, it was 5, 10, 15 years in jail, in prison, for the same crime. Well, as we began to learn this and learn about fiberboard and learn about fuel and then learned about protein, who would think that the #1 food eaten on earth until this century was marijuana seeds? When Oliver Twist, you all know the movie or the story of Oliver Twist, when he's eating gruel, gruel was 95% of the time made from hemp seed, the richest food on earth. That hemp seed is the richest food we have of 3 million foods on earth. It is the highest in linolenic and linoleic acid. And what is linolenic and linoleic acid? It dissolves the cholesterol or the plaque in our arteries. It dissolves the hardening of the arteries taking place in your body. There's no other food on earth that dissolves it as good or as well as hemp, and hemp is illegal. The only way you can get hemp food in the United States is to get it poisoned and sterilized by the government. They will give it to birds. They won't, you're not supposed to eat it if in the United States if you're humans. Humans have eaten hemp seed as part of their prime diet from China to Europe since time immemorial. It is the healthiest of all the millions of foods on our planet, and the governments of the world have made it illegal. And only you and me can change this by teaching this information, learning this information, and then teaching it over and over. You can't just teach it once to a person. You got to get in their ear over and over and over and over, and you never can get tired. I started doing this with Captain Ed 23 years ago. And the one pledge we made to ourselves is, he made me make this pledge. I would have never done it. Captain Ed said, we've got to do this every day, and he made me raise my hand and swear to it, that we have to work for the complete legalization of pot every day until we were dead, pot was legal, or we could quit when we turned 84 years old. We didn't have to quit, we could quit. And I was 34 when I took that pledge, and the last time I took that pledge was about 3 years ago with Captain Ed, just before he died. And he asked me to take it with him, I guess it was 4 days before he died, and he made me take that pledge again. We've been partners 19 years, and he had never stopped 1 minute for working, for teaching this information. And the one thing he told me, teach this information, don't get tired of teaching the information, because the governments did not teach us in school. All of us went to school, high school and college, and a minute you go, did they ever teach any of you that hemp was the #1 paper source on earth until this century? Any of you ever learned that hemp was not only rope, was your clothing, your drapes, that 85% of the thing they call homespun, that was what the cloth that people made in their own homes, and there was 85% of all cloth was marijuana? Did they teach it to you in school? Isn't that strange? They taught you about jute and sisal and ramie and cotton and flax. Cotton was less than 1/10 of 1% of fibers prior to 1820. 1/10 of 1% of fiber was cotton. Hemp was the #1 everything on our planet. Imagine all the sails, all the ropes, all the flags, all the books, all the and the #1 food source on our planet. The #1 medicine source for glaucoma, for asthma. There is nobody that's got asthma generally, that unless they got bronchitis with it, that isn't better off as soon as they smoke pot. I've stopped people in mid-stride, my own children, 2 of my kids have asthma, where they smoked a joint or smoked a hit and stopped a full-blown asthma attack that before that I had to take them to the hospital and put them in an oxygen tent till 1973 when I learned about hemp possibly having these effects. It's the best medicine. How many people ever here knew that people throughout the world and throughout history have been folklored and then in fact live longer, that smoke marijuana every day of their life, like the Jamaicans live longer than the people on the island that do no drugs whatsoever, and they live 8 to 24 years longer than people that use alcohol and tobacco on the island of Jamaica? What would you tell them? Would you tell a Jamaican quit smoking? Would you tell a Rastafarian, don't smoke that stuff? It's better that you die 8 to 24 years sooner. I don't think so. I don't think they'd listen. But that we didn't know it was fiber, and that we didn't know that it was wood, and that we didn't have to cut down trees, and it was cheaper and better and healthier for the whole planet. That all these synthetics that have created all these industries, that virtually none of these industries need to exist, from fossil fuels to plastics. You can make better plastic out of hemp. Henry Ford built a car, this organic engineering genius. He built a car in 1941 from hemp. Its windows, its body, everything but the engine and the frame were made from hemp. And he predicted by 1943 to 1945, virtually every car in the world would be made from hemp and flax. How many of you think are taught this information in school? I mean, you'd almost have to believe that the government has forgotten this, or at some level, they don't want us to ever find this information out. I'm going to ask you to take a look at this information. You find anything wrong with it, we have a $30,000 challenge now in the back of the Emperor to say, prove us wrong. But if you can't prove us wrong, and you can, like John Jiggins said, I should offer $30,000 for you to prove it right. Well, I don't know if I can afford that if everybody proves it right. But I've been going, I've spoken at about 1,500 colleges from about 1983 to now. I've done trips all over the United States, I've been in 36 state capitol buildings. I've given this challenge in front of everybody. I've gone to every university, agricultural university. I have asked for somebody to prove the information wrong. I haven't heard one single word. I heard one word from one person that was totally wrong, that he thought eucalyptus trees and Napier grass could outproduce it, but he was totally wrong. It takes 40 tons of energy out to get, or 40 tons of energy in, for instance, in Napier grass to get 30 tons out. Hemp is 7 to 10 tons per acre. It is the healthiest, strongest plant. It regenerates the earth. It is the best for relaxation for most people. Not everybody. I've got a kid that can't smoke it anymore. I don't know why. He just has negative effects with pot. But of the other 5 kids, they're all fine. They all handle it well. And none of my kids drink. None of my kids are drinkers. They smoke pot. My daughter, who is 18 or 17, just won a $100,000 scholarship to college in Oregon. for $25,000 a year for 4 years, which is the top scholarship to Reed College, and she got it. And I gotta tell you, my daughter smokes morning, noon, and night. And she got the, and I was so proud of her to win that scholarship. And so everything against, but here is a plant that should be honored. In any sane society, they would be congratulating us and kissing us and thanking us for smoking and growing cannabis, not putting us in jail. And until, in America, we've got 190,000 Americans in prison right now, and 160,000 more in jail right now, 800,000 on parole and probation right now for marijuana. 190,000 Americans are in prison right now. And they're in prison for something I bet you every one of you have done. I want them out. I want this crime to end. 14 million years have been spent in American prisons since 1937 for marijuana. Prisons, jails, parole, and probation. And it's time it ended. In case you don't know this, we only had about 250,000 people in prison in America in 1977. We now have 1,100,000 going to 2 million at the turn of the century, going to 4 million by the year 2019. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. And they will not teach one word of this information, nor will they deny it. They try their best to ignore it. But they can't ignore information in America or here if you keep knocking on the door and telling them the information and getting in their face and challenging them. They will come down. Not one person has ever put down the information that I've given out on cannabis. That a lot of people questioned it in the beginning, but every one of them has come around to thinking that we are right, and this is the information. And we've gone from a few hundred of us that knew to a few thousand to 40 million Americans that know this, and millions more. Germany has gone faster than America. In 2 years, Germany has gone towards legalization faster than any country in the world, and that's because everybody in Germany knows this knowledge. Der Spiegel, Stern, the book The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which is printed on hemp there, have become bestsellers, has become a bestseller. The magazines have taken up the information. Germany is ready to legalize. And we are seeing it all over the world, but we need everybody to keep thinking. Don't get involved in environmental causes if you're not going to be involved in cannabis, because it's the best cause of environment that there is in the world. There isn't any of you, no matter how you might think. And some of you might think, oh, come on, he can't be real. How can you beat synthetic plastics in this? I'm telling you that you will not come up with one single argument that will stand the test of time, at least I believe you won't, about hemp or against hemp. This plant, what we should have been taught from first grade on, was stolen from us, ripped off from us, so that none of us learned this in school. The schools on this part are bankrupt. The government is bankrupt. The only excuse they have is they didn't know. And once they knew, what did they do? They hid it and jailed more of us. So I'm here to say, get this information out. John Jiggins has done a great Australian edition of this book. And I think if you guys go out and make it a point to make this organization and organizations grow in whatever school or endeavor you're in or work you're in, and keep getting it out and keep getting it out and never quit until we've won, we're going to win. And that's the way I'd like to leave you. I'd like to open it for questions if you got any questions. Yes. Short-term memory is not short-term memory loss. You never had short-term memory loss. Every one of you have forgotten, you're doing something and you get over on this subject and you can't figure out where you were on this subject, and you think, well, you got memory loss. You don't have memory loss, because a day later, a week later, a month later, a year later, in mid-stride, you'll remember exactly where you were and take up the conversation again. What you have is short-term memory misplacement.